Okay, Tricia, this is, thank you very much for sharing the article, and I think that it's timely, and I'm glad that you shared it because I don't know if I would have caught it immediately. Now, I've been following this situation, from Parkland since it occurred for a myriad of reasons, just like a lot of other people are, but in this particular case, I was really glad to see some investigative journalism going on with the Sun-Sentinel, and some other news organizations in South Florida in really trying to delve into this, hold the government agencies to account, being that, in my viewpoint, this situation with Nicholas Cruz was absolutely preventable, and on a myriad of different levels. From a preventative standpoint, before it ever reached that point, and then even on the day of the incident, it could have been prevented, stopped, mitigated everywhere along the chain. So this is a unique situation in that it could have been prevented if the safety nets were working over here with regards to the IEP services, behavioral services, things of that nature with regards to his IEP implementation, LRE, all of those things. When he had become of age, revoked special education services, and then turned around and changed his mind and wanted them back, and then the school system did not want to acknowledge that. This could have been prevented. So I was happy to see that these news organizations were trying to get access to his education records so that they could really shed some light on how we could improve and how we as a society could be in compliance, to be aware, to be more educated, to have more training, to maintain the proper number of staff, to pay our educators and our para support staff commensurate with the job that they're required to do. All of these things, this is always what you hope for through investigative journalism, but then you shared this, and this is just a pile of steamy crap. It's meant to incite. It's meant to denote or provoke emotion. I guess that's the best. And what's really sad about it is that the mass majority of the people out there are not impacted. They do not have children that require these needs, and they do not have children that have behavioral issues, either rooted in mental health issues, environmental factors, or neurological issues. And then within the camp or within the field of parents that do have children that are impacted or suffer from these difficulties, you can further break that down between the children that have the behavioral issues due to communicative obstacles or deficits or difficulties, which is not the same as the kids who have environmental or mental health issues that are exacerbating the problems to where it's not necessarily a communication issue, and some of that stuff is a mystery and we don't know what to do about it. And some people aren't gonna want to hear this, but I'm going to throw it out there because I've done some research on this over the years. There's also that factor of the psychotropic drugs and the side effects, the stated side effects, which include murderous ideation, suicidal tendencies, suicidal completion, rage, things of that nature, and we don't hallucination. And we need to throw the fact that this medication or these medications have the possibility to contribute to or create and trigger these incidences. we're it's our responsibility as the adults in this situation to analyze how we're serving children and how we're raising children. And in this regard, I do believe that it's a village because we live in a civilized society. And that's what all these safety nets are for. At the same time, to sit there and scapegoat an entire population, which is what this article does. Come on, the tagline, violent kids take over Florida's classrooms. Really? Really? That's what's happening? And they have the law on their side. Now, because I'm a special education attorney, civil rights attorney, that's highly offensive to me. Now, the thing about being offended is, so what? What happens when you're offended? Nothing. Nothing happens. Or let me look around. I'm offended by it, but gosh, nothing's happening. I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I see people's opinions. I'm glad that the videos on there are showing the viewpoints of the people on this commission in Broward County, from the police to parents to the very crappy job done by the school board. I'm assuming that's one of their attorneys, and especially the one where the father had asked very specific questions with regards to Nicholas Cruz's education program, and their response was, well, we haven't really delved into that aspect. We just provided everybody the documentation, but we really haven't. We don't really have an answer for you with regards to the specifics on why Nicholas Cruz's IEP team made certain decisions. Failed in so many of those regards. And instead of focusing on that aspect, of course, they flip it over to create trash like this. And because we have so many parents that have absolutely no perspective, because they do not have a child with these issues, now they're naturally going to feed into this hype. And they're naturally, because of a lack of understanding of how the law works and the mechanisms that go in between it, which of course they don't care. They don't care because they're not impacted by it. And if you're not impacted by it, you're not going to care. I don't expect them to care. I don't expect them to want to learn or know. So in that regard, I don't blame parents or even educators for being ignorant of mental health issues, neurological issues, or environmental factors that create children that have these kind of needs. But to sit there and say that somehow they're forced into general education classrooms is just absolutely, utterly, and completely false. That is not the case. And but at the same time, am I going to go out there and combat this trash? Well, no, I don't have the power or the platform to be able to do that. See, it's already been done. And you sit there and you go, what is the end game? And the end game is to change the IDEA. The end game is that next time that they revise it, and the last time they revised IDEA was 2004. So that is the end game. It's the end game for the National School Board Association, the superintendent's lobby across the country. I don't know about the case, which is the Council of Special Education Directors. I don't know their position, but I know the positions of the other ones, and I know the positions of law enforcement, and I know the positions of the majority of parents out there that just are not affected by children. Now, see, I've got a 16-year-old that has a neurological issue, called autism, and as part of her condition, she has behaviors, and a lot of that is rooted in the fact that she has a limited ability to fully communicate, and so behavior becomes a form of communication. Now, do I fault her? Do I sit there? And I know that it's insane for me to say this, or people sit there and go, "Oh, James, it's so inflammatory." I had a meeting the other day, to where we were talking about one of my clients, and they wanted to sit there and say, "Oh, but James, We got to think about the other kids, and we've got to think about the staff. This kid's, dangerous. He's not. He's not. But it's the inflammatory language that goes along with it that then, he has autism, and he spits on occasion, or he'll throw his iPad aside. But he has a very, very limited ability to communicate. And largely communicates using his iPad, his lap device. And with the increase of his language, his behavior is decreasing. But to sit there and frame him as violent and frame him as a danger, that's a narrative. That's a narrative that the school system wants and he's not in a general education setting. He's not. He has exposure in general education classes with supports. And he does fine in those environments. But they're talking about his they want to move him to a completely separate school that's only special education students, instead of trying to make it work where he currently is, and the data supporting that. So what is this narrative that in this particular case that everybody's holding on to? And what I ended up having to say is, guys, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Do you want to put him in a cage? Should we take him out back and just shoot him? I mean, I just do not understand what the hell is going on in our society now, to where you sit there and you want to be outraged. You sit there and you want to complain. You want to bellyache. But come to me with solutions. Come to me with solutions that work. Come to me with something other than a lazy response. Come to me with something that involves tangible change, training, resources. Because if you're only going to half-ass it, and if you're only going to provide lip service, or if you're only going to complain, or if you're going to just sit there and just be outraged or offended, then I don't want to hear it. All right? I am so way past that crap. You either be part of the solution or you get out of the way. And you let the rest of us that do care, that don't want to see this country and this society burn to the ground. And I hate to say it, but what we're dealing with right now is the tyranny within our public schools of the neurotypicals. Okay? And it's not any different. I mean, but at the same time, because there's been some encroachment and some progress made with regards to mainstreaming, and if you want to call it that, even though that doesn't have a place in the law, but inclusion, and but if you don't have enough resources, if you don't have enough teachers, and if you are going to sit there and keep being obsessed with the high stakes testing associated with Every Student Succeeds Act, and then No Child Left Behind before that, which is just No Child Left Behind changed under a different name under the Obama administration, just like No Child Left Behind belonged to George W. Bush. Fast forward, just change the name, repackage it, Every Student Succeeds Act. We still have all the components. We're still tracking subgroups, and we're still encouraging school systems to sit there and gerrymander their boundaries or try to excise the subgroups away so that they can protect the continuity of their school score, and especially in higher income, mid-income school systems or within schools. Because I have this happening within school districts. They'll sit there and they'll protect jealously the ones that are passing, which tend to be in mid to high income areas. Now, how does this relate over? These are all motivating factors. And so if you have motivating factors of wanting to increase your school score and wanting to stop the slide of people exiting public education because the people that work inside of it, especially in administration, want job security. They want to feel good about the job that they're doing. And if particular subgroups are impeding that, then you've got to find a way to get rid of them. Now, in our current political correct environment, and this is why I just would like people to just speak plainly, all right? Because it having to deal with people that are being cryptic about their bigotry or being cryptic about their motivations, which everybody has them, then it becomes extremely difficult to sit there and make definitive moves to either stop that or address the issue or educate these people that their perception is wrong. And so that's why I really do not like political correctness on any level. I don't care if it offends you or not. It doesn't bother me, all right? I get offended all the time. Like I said, nothing happens. Look, nothing's happening. So, but we're the adults now. We can't solve the problem without all the information and the motivating factors for why people make the decisions they do. Now, in this particular situation, why do I think that the Sun-Sentinel did this particular report and that are setting up what I consider a growing national narrative? And, we have the outraged kids that from Parkland that have their motive. You have all of these other factors. Why is this going to gain steam? Why is this particular thing dangerous? Well, change comes through those that have the resources and the political clout. All right, there's violence occurring in schools all over the place. There's schools within Broward County schools that are not doing very well, that are dangerous schools. Do you see anybody caring about them? Do you see the Sun-Sentinel doing an investigative report on the high schools or alternative placement programs that have violent crime, meaning assaults, weapons, things of that nature? Of course not. Do you see them going into schools in urban areas and giving two craps about what's going on there and the fear of the student body in those schools? No, of course not. Why? Demographics. Now, within Broward County, the median income is $56,000. Right, which is above the national average, but then you also have cost of living. But within Broward County, you have Parkland, Florida, and Parkland, Florida's median income jumps up to $131,000, over double what the median income is in Broward County. Okay, and so Broward County is a huge school system. Parkland, where this tragic event occurred, is on the high income side of this situation, guys. And the reason that this is gaining steam is because it impacted people with the political clout. It impacted them directly. It took their kids. And that's why this is going on. And that's why they're going to be able to lie. And that's why they're going to be able to skew data. And that's why they're going to be able to tell that, these things are occurring when they're not. Or they're going to be isolated incidents where, in a Florida classroom, this is occurring and, or all over the place that, children are, but I can tell you with my clients, we don't do that. It is an IEP team decision. And within the IEP, it says, does a child's behavior impede their learning or the learning of others? And if it does, then no, you've got to balance whether or not the child's behavior is going to negatively impact that within the school. Now, within this stupid, crappy report, it says that, the school's got to sit there and exhaust to an impossible or show that it's impossible. No, there's no such word as impossible in the law. That is not what the law says. So it skews the results for anybody that doesn't have the perception or understanding, and it creates an ignorant person that then becomes a reactionary, that then becomes anti-special needs altogether. Now, within the special needs segment, you have the parents within the special needs segment, or let's say, better yet, not special needs, those identified as requiring specialized instruction, because then that will pull in mentally those with a speech language issue, or those with a learning disability only, and don't have any behaviors or any other needs. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of parents that have children with learning disabilities and other issues that they don't want. They don't want the kids in there that have behavioral concerns at all. I talk to them. I mean, some of them are my clients. They just do not, when they're talking to me, some of them just don't realize that I have a 16-year-old daughter that does come with some behaviors, because of how autism manifests for her. Now, do I get offended by it? No, I don't get offended by it, because I don't require everybody to have the knowledge base that I do. I have to also keep in mind that the reason I have the knowledge base that I do is in part because I have my daughter. That if she hadn't come to my wife and I don't know what James Galini's worldview would be. I don't know how I would look at life. I sure as hell wouldn't be sitting here as a special education attorney if it wasn't for my daughter. She's the reason I have passion about what I do and about who I fight for. It's broadened my perspective about things. But we're taking 20 steps back with regards to civil rights, and I think so much of that is founded in our fear than anything else, and rooted in our ignorance. And I don't know how you cure that, because fear is a dangerous monster. It ends up creating a situation to where societies do some horrible things because they scapegoat or they mistreat certain segments of the population. And then what ends up happening is 20 years, 30, 50 years, then everybody sort of figures out, why did we do that? And then have to sit there and issue apologies. And, it's just a horrible thing. And we're heading that direction. We're already there in so many ways. Shame on the Sun-Sentinel. This is lazy, and lazy. It's intentional. It's intentional misreporting, and guys, we got to keep our eyes open, because when they revise the IDEA, do not be shocked if many of the things that they put in have to do with softening the requirements on least restrictive environment. And like I said, the mechanisms are already there to have it work and work correctly. But we base it off data collection. And no, schools aren't forced to sit there and have children in the classroom that are violent. But at the same time, if the school system does not understand the antecedents, if they don't understand the behavior, and if they don't understand, what consequences, and that I'm talking about the base definition of consequence, not punitive, not punishment. I'm talking about because there's good consequences to the things that we do as well, right? So, you praise a child, you give the child something, that's a consequence, even though it's a positive one. So if we don't understand the ABC data behind why the child is acting out or acting as they are, then I'm sorry, we've got to sit there and see what we can do to make that environment. But that it shouldn't take a long time to make that determination, to have data show us. But if you have people that are unqualified making those decisions instead of people who have that expertise in behavior, in being able to objectively and impartially make these recommendations to the IEP team, then I don't know what to tell a school. You know, you're creating your own problems. And I don't pity that. You know, but to sit there and scapegoat children with neurological issues, children with mental health problems, children with environmental factors, you know, I'm not going to let you off the hook. And this kind of stuff is letting you off the hook, and it's an easy thing for all of you to get behind if you're a school person. Nobody wants you to be in a dangerous environment. But for God's sakes, why aren't you going to your union? Why aren't you filing complaints against your school system for not providing you the training, the resources, the staffing that you need to do your job? What is the purpose of the union? It's collective bargaining. You're supposed to be a strong unit to sit there and fight for kids. But you can't fight for kids if you're not fighting for yourself. And if you're not fighting for yourself in making your administration, your employer provide you the tools, the support staff, the training, and everything that you need, then I don't feel sorry for you. All of us parents, and me included as a special education attorney and a parent, are here to fight for you. We want you to have the resources that you need. There's no parent out there, and I'm with you. You know, my daughter, every once in a while, it's very rare now because she had the interventions through the school systems through the years. Very rarely does my daughter have, get upset, because her ability to fully communicate gets expanded over the years. But during those years when she didn't have that, and she would have a meltdown, you know, what do you think? I want the school people to be on the receiving end of her getting upset? Of course I don't. You know, none of us want that. But at the same time, you know, if you're not willing to provide the level of training and staff support that the parents know works, then once again, I don't know what to tell you. But don't sit there and scapegoat our kids when the safety nets are there and the law is written in a very clear and concise way that doesn't force anybody to do anything. It's a team decision. And data collection is the driver in making these decisions. There is no force. They don't have the law on their side. That they have a team that's supposed to be working collaboratively and in the interest of the child. And in the interest of that child, it also encompasses the considerations for every other student out there. This article is a pile of inflammatory crap. But like I said, the people behind it have the money, because where Parkland occurred is a high-income area. I'd like to see Sun-Sentinel do an investigative report in some of these other schools that are lower income, but see, those people don't have power. They don't have political power. Sad.